everyone, or welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name's Maria, and today's video is just going to be my TBR jar picks my November TBR. And as I say every month, I cannot believe we're already at November. This is my favourite time of year, and it's definitely the time of year I like to jump into a lot more fantasy reads, so you probably will see that in a lot of the picks that I have, but I will still be using my TBR prompts to pick those from the TBR cart as well. But I do have a few books that I do want to get on my November TBR to hopefully get to. I'm not being too stringent with myself. I've been using the TBR jar method for the past few months and it's worked out really well for me so far. Most months I've read most of the books that have been on my TBR, so it just gives me that little bit of direction when it comes to picking what I want to read, because I have a huge physical TBR at the moment, so trying to narrow that down can be a little bit difficult, so it's definitely been a bit of a godsend to have this to help me with it. But a few of the books that I do want to try and read in November are firstly The Queen of Air and Darkness by Cassandra Clare. This is the third in the Dark Artifices trilogy by Cassandra Clare, and I think this is the fourth trilogy within the Shadowhunter world. So I've read the first two, Lady Midnight and Lord of Shadows. Absolutely love them. 5 stars for both of them. So I'm really highly anticipating this one. I may try and squeeze this in even before the end of October, but depends on how I get on with the rest of the TBR that I have for this month. But if I can maybe start this at the end of the month, I definitely will be, because I want to pick this up as soon as possible. I'd also like to try and pick up Lady Macbeth by Ava Reid. Now this one is kind of a reimagining of Macbeth, and it's centering around Lady Macbeth within that story. I do believe that it's not actually kind of a retelling as such, but definitely more of a taking the characters from that story and kind of rejigging it to a new story to be a little bit more feminist forward. And I just think with Ava Reid's writing, it's usually very atmospheric, a little bit gothic, a little bit dark, so perfect time of year to be reading this, and I've heard some great things about it, so really hoping to be able to pick this up in November. And then I have For the Wolf by Hannah Witten. I've had this on my physical TBR for, I think it'll be 2 years this year. I'm pretty sure my sister bought me this for Christmas 2 years ago, and I had full intentions of reading it as soon as I got it, and for whatever reason I just haven't picked it up, so definitely wanting to prioritise this one for November to get it off that physical TBR. And again, I've heard great things about this one, so definitely want to pick it up. I believe this one centres around 2 princesses who basically, one is born and is for the throne and the other is for the wolf, and essentially the princess that is given to the wolf is kind of a sacrifice to help keep the kingdom safe or something like that. That's about as much information as I know, but I'd imagine there's going to be some sort of enemies to lovers story within here. I'd imagine it's going to be quite dark and atmospheric, kind of a forest setting, and I believe this is maybe a Little Red Riding Hood kind of reimagining, but I don't know that for sure. I haven't read the synopsis too much, but I've heard it's really good, heard it's a great read, so definitely excited to pick this one up. And then lastly, I've got A Sorceress Comes to Call by T. Kingfisher, and again, this one's a little bit of a fairy tale retelling. I believe it's Rapunzel. I may be wrong in that, but I believe it's a Rapunzel retelling, and I just love T. Kingfisher's writing in the books that I've read from her so far. So the one I've read is Nettle and Bone. Absolutely loved the writing, loved the humour in there, loved the dark side of it as well. So again, perfect time of year to be reading something that's a little bit of a dark fairy tale retelling. So yeah, hopefully I'll be able to get to those in November. As I say, I'm not being too strict with myself, but they are ones that I've wanted to get to for quite some time, so definitely hoping to. I'll definitely be reading the Cassandra Clare book without a doubt, and the rest of them just hoping to get to them, but I can kind of move those about if I don't have time to get to them within November, given that I do have quite a few buddy reads as well planned in for that month. So, but without further ado, let's just get into the TBR jar picks my November TBR. So as with every month, just going to use my TBR jar. So this is the one I have. It's from Bookmark by Chris, and it does have a little wooden lid as well, so it's really pretty. There's a few different designs on there, and I'll link it down below. Let's just pick the first prompt. Oh, okay, so it just says the 10th book on your shelf. So just going to be counting across to the 10th book on the TBR cart. I do have obviously my shelves here, but we'll just stick with the TBR cart for this one. So it's obviously going to be one kind of near the top, so let's see where we land. Oh, okay, I'm quite excited about this one actually. So this is from an author that I have read from before, and it's The Binding by Bridget Collins. So I've read The Betrayals by her, which was quite good. It was really atmospheric. I did really enjoy it. I think I gave it 4 stars, but I've really wanted to read this one. It's essentially around this boy who's working as a binder's apprentice, and essentially they're able to bind memories and dreams or something like that within these books. And when he's working in the vaults, essentially he comes across a folder that is one of his memories or one of his dreams, and I believe the story kind of goes from there. But I just think it's going to be really atmospheric. I always love stories about books or stories or anything like that. They tend to work really well for me. Anything like The Starless Sea, and this kind of gives the same kind of vibes as The Starless Sea. I'm hoping this one will be successful in that as well, but yeah, really excited about that. I think it's a perfect time of year to read this one as well. So yeah, the first one we have is The Binding by Bridget Collins. And I think I did forget to mention, I'm going to pick 8 books. So I may not read them all in November, but I'm going to try and pick 8 books so that I have a little bit of flexibility when it comes to my reading and the kind of books that I'm going to be picking up. So yeah, that's number 1 out of 8. Okay, and the second prompt. Oh, okay, so a book picked by your significant other. So what I'll do is I'll take a picture of my TBR cart and just get him to pick one. So he's not here at the moment, but I'll get a picture of my cart and see if he can pick one just from the picture. So we'll leave that one to the side until I've got him to pick that one. So prompt number 3. Okay, so a book set in another country. So let me see, I think I did have one for this I think we got this prompt last month as well. So let me just see, there was a couple on here that worked for it. I think one option I may have is A Man Called Ove by Fredrik Backman. I'm pretty sure this is set in Sweden or something like that, so this is a potential option for that prompt. It could also pick A Darker Shade of Magic because technically it's set in London, which is in England, so it is a different country. I could also pick Off to the Races by Elsie Silver because, again, set in the US, so a different country. Oh, another one I have is The Whispering Muse by Laura Purcell, so it's set in London as well. So another one that I could pick because it's set in a different country. So I'm not going to look into too many because I don't want to give myself too many options in terms of what to pick. So between these 4, I think I may add A Man Called Ove because I have wanted to get this on my TBR. I've heard it's really good. It's a pretty short one as well, so I do tend to end up picking loads of huge books to put on my TBR, but this one looks pretty short. It looks like it might be a quite easy one to get through, so yeah, I want to pick this one on the TBR for November. And this one I think just follows like a grumpy man. Basically at the start of it he thinks he's surrounded by idiots, he thinks young people don't know what they're doing, and I think it's just a story kind of following him, very slice of life type of story, and maybe him finding happiness or something like that. Again, I don't want to look too much into it because it is quite a short book. I feel like the synopsis can sometimes give you basically the whole story, but I just heard it's really good, heard his writing really good. I haven't read anything by Fredrik Backman, so be definitely intrigued to pick this one up and see how I feel about his writing and about his storytelling. But yeah, A Man Called Ove, I think I'll add that one for this 3rd prompt. Okay, so the 4th prompt. The book that's been on your TBR for the longest. So, on here. Okay, so looking through, I think the book that's been on this TBR the longest and the one that I've probably owned the longest is Uprooted by Naomi Novik. So I've had this for a couple of years as well. I read Spinning Silver by Naomi Novik and absolutely adored it. I've also read her Skalamas series and again adored it. So really hoping I'm going to have success with this one as well. Now this one is quite similar to, I think, For the Wolf in terms of it centers around there being a sacrifice to kind of a local demon or something like that within the story that basically keeps the kingdom safe. Now Agnieszka, who is the main character within this, actually sacrifices herself for her friend and becomes that sacrifice for the town, and that's all I know. Again, I do think it's probably going to be some enemies to lovers where she's going to go to this demon or evil person and basically find out maybe things aren't quite as they seemed. But yeah, I'll be excited to read this one. It's a standalone as well, so it means I'm not starting a new series, which is really good. I'm trying to be really strict about starting too many new series, so definitely a good advantage with that. But yeah, one I've been looking forward to and one I just haven't picked up for whatever reason, so this is a good opportunity to get this one on the TBR. Okay, and the 5th prompt. Ooh, okay, a book you think you will rate 5 stars. And I've realised I'm holding these up and I have no idea if you can see them because the writing is tiny. But yeah, a book I think I will rate 5 stars. There's a couple on here that could be options for that. And one of them would be A Darker Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab. So I usually have quite a good time reading her books. I usually do enjoy them. I think my favourite of hers so far has been Addie LaRue. So this is quite different than that. I am reading Vicious at the moment, which I have really, really loved. So again, having some success there. So this could potentially be a 5 star. And contrary to what I was just saying about starting new series, one that I think I could give 5 stars to as well is Gideon the Ninth. I've heard a lot of things about this. Heard that it's really good, heard the storytelling's amazing, heard it can be a little bit confusing, but once you kind of get into it and once you get to the end of the first book, everything kind of makes sense. Again, this one, the synopsis just doesn't really make sense to me. I think it's intentional to be quite vague. So this could be another one that is potentially going to be a 5 star for me. And then I do have Warbreaker by Brandon Sanderson, which I've had kind of mixed reviews with him. I think the first book in the Final Empire and Mistborn series I absolutely loved. It was 5 stars for me. The series did go a little bit downhill for me from there. It wasn't terrible, but it was definitely more like that 3 to 3.5 for me, so not sure whether this would be better. It is a standalone, so maybe that would fare better with me. So again, this is one that could potentially be a 5 star. So yeah, these are the options that I have. So A Darker Shade of Magic, Gideon the Ninth, or Warbreaker by Brandon Sanderson, and I'm really not sure which one to pick. I I think because it is a standalone, I'm trying to stick with that rule of not starting too many series before I finish series that I'm in the middle of. I'm going to go with Warbreaker by Brandon Sanderson because it is part of the bigger Cosy Era, but you don't kind of have to read it as part of a series. So yeah, I think just because it's a bit more of a standalone, I'm going to add this one to the TBR. This one I believe follows two princesses who are basically set on two different paths. And basically it's just following their paths, and I'm imagining they will converge at some point. I don't really know too much about the story, but I just heard this one's really good. I've seen a lot of people who have this as their first book into the Cosy Era and kind of the first book into Brandon Sanderson's work, and they've really enjoyed it. So I'll be intrigued to pick this up to see how I fare with it. As I say, I've had a bit of a mixed response to his writing, so be interested to see how I fare with this one. Okay, and now for the 6th prompt. Okay, so a book with a red cover. So let me see, I don't think I have too many on here. I think I may only have one, which will make it easier. Okay, so I do only have one, and it's The Wolf and the Woodsman by Ava Reid. So I've got 2 Ava Reids on my TBR this month. I may put this to a lesser priority book just because I do think this will be similar to For the Wolf, just from the synopsis, because basically it's around a woman who doesn't have power, and again her being kind of sacrificed to this woodsman within this town to save the kingdom. So it may be a little bit too similar, but it is technically the only one on here that has a full red cover, unless I can see anything on my shelves. Let me have a look. So I do have The Children of Gods and Fighting Men, and basically this is by a local author here, so Shauna Lawless. And this is a lot to do with kind of Irish mythology, about women within that time. It's one that I did want to pick up a few months ago, so I actually think I will put this one back because I just know I'm not going to pick this up if I'm going to be reading For the Wolf, so it's kind of pointless to put it on my TBR. And instead I'm going to switch it out for The Children of Gods and Fighting Men by Shauna Lawless because, as I say, it's a local author, one that I wanted to pick up for some time, and definitely wanting to get a bit more into that Irish mythology and seeing that within fantasy world. So yeah, I'll be excited to pick this one up, and again it's another opportunity to get this back on the TBR. Okay, now for the 7th prompt. Okay, so the book on your TBR that you've been avoiding. So what have I been avoiding on here? Okay, so this is a book that came up before, but one that I have been avoiding is Gideon the Ninth because, as I say, a lot of people say it is quite confusing and it can be a little bit much to try and get into. So I've kind of been avoiding it because I'm scared that I'm just not going to understand it, or that I'm not going to be able to follow the narrative of this one. So I guess it's fate. I guess this is supposed to be on my TBR. It has come up for 2 of the prompts. So I'm guessing the world is telling me to read this one. So I think I'm going to pick this one for the 7th prompt. So for the 8th and final prompt, your most anticipated read. I always hate this question because I'm anticipating all of them, so I'm not sure which one is kind of my most anticipated read. Let me have a quick look. Okay, so as I say, I'm pretty much anticipating all of these reads. It's the reason I bought them and they're on my physical TBR, but one that I do really want to read is The Ever King by LJ Andrews, and I've read her previous series to this one, which is kind of connected to this as well, so I know I like her writing, I know I like her kind of romantic relationships that she writes about, and I've heard this one's really good, so it's definitely one that I wanted to continue with and just haven't had a reason to kind of pick it up for my TBR. Looking at what I have on the TBR, a lot of it is very fantasy heavy and a bit more magical realism, so I don't really have a lot of easier, maybe romantasy reads, so for that reason I think I'm going to pick this one and get this added onto the TBR for November. So that means I do just have that final prompt, so a book picked by your significant other. So I think what I might do actually is just to make it easier is pick maybe 4 or 5 books, take a picture of them, send them to him and see which one he chooses. Okay, so as I was saying, my TBR at the minute is very fantasy heavy. There's not too many light and fluffy choices in there, so I thought for the books that I would send to my husband to pick for me, I would pick some of the more romantic leaning books. So I picked Off to the Races by Elsie Silver, The Bride of the Shadow King by Sylvia Mercedes, The Undertaking of Heart and Mercy by Megan Bannon, and Saving Six by Chloe Walsh. So I have a feeling he's either going to pick Elsie Silver or Chloe Walsh, just because I know he knows that I've enjoyed these authors and they're ones that he always points out when we're in the bookshops. So we'll see if it's one of these 2 that he picks, or if he surprises me and picks one of the other ones. But yeah, once he's picked which one he wants me to go with, I'll come back on and let you know. Okay, so my husband has now picked the book, so it's going to be The Undertaking of Heart and Mercy by Megan Bannon, and this one I believe covers 2 people who are basically ending up sending anonymous notes to each other, but they actually don't like each other in real life. So I think it's kind of a You've Got Mail situation where there's a bit of a animosity there, but they end up messaging each other anonymously and becoming friends, and I'm guessing more the friends in this one. But yeah, I'd be excited to read this one. I think it is supposed to be quite a cute romance, so I'll be interested to read this and see how it goes. So yeah, I think I have a pretty ambitious TBR for November. I think there's around 12 books on that TBR, but even though it's ambitious, I do think I may have a chance of getting to them all, because most of them I think I do have an audiobook for, which always helps. And some of them are a little bit short as well. Some are pretty chunky, but for the most part I think they look as if they're around 400 to 500 pages, so I may be able to get to them all in November, but these are just a pile of possibilities. I don't have to get to them all, and depending on how my mood goes, I may end up switching a few of them out. But yeah, definitely really excited to get to these. I may even try and get a head start in my TBR for November, depending on how the end of this month goes. At the minute it's the 23rd of October, so still a bit of a way to go before the end of this month, so if I can I may try and get a head start on some of these. But that's it for my TBR for November. Let me know if any of these are on your radar, if you've read any of them, what you thought of them, and tell me what you've got on your TBR for November as well. What's your priority for that month? I tend to find that, as I say, in November and December I like to read a lot more fantasy, a lot more cozy reads, so definitely looking forward to a few of these on this list. But definitely give me some of your recommendations below of any of your favourite fantasy reads or reads that you would read around this time of year. I have a never ending TBR, but I'm always wanting to add to it. If you like this video, do remember to give it a like, and if you want to see more from me, remember to subscribe. I'll be posting 2 videos per week, and it's videos like this, so my TBR videos, book recommendation videos, reading vlogs, all good bookish things like that. Other than that, thanks so much for watching this one. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one soon. Bye!